Welcome back to Crimetober. Tonight's case takes us to Los Angeles in 1957, when a Halloween trick-or-treat would turn deadly. A man would go to the door expecting trick-or-treaters only to be shot point blank. This is the story of a trick-or-treat murder of Peter Fabiano. Peter Fabiano was a 35-year-old hairdresser living in Los Angeles with his wife, Betty. By all accounts, Peter was a hardworking, charming, and successful businessman. Along with his wife, they also had many other beauty salons. Behind this picture-perfect life, there would be cracks within the marriage, and those cracks would turn out to be very fatal. So on October 31st, 1957, Halloween night, this would change the lives of Betty and Peter forever. Mostly all the trick-or-treaters had been gone, but around 11 p.m., they do receive a knock at the door. Very strange, very odd, being as though it's late in the night and all of the trick-or-treaters had gone away at this point in time. But little did Peter know what would be waiting for him on the other side of this door. So unbeknownst to him, he grabs the candy bowl, and on the other side of the door is a person outside with a mask, with a costume on, holding a brown paper bag. When Peter opened the door, instead of hearing trick-or-treat, a gunshot went off. Peter was shot close range within his chest. He collapsed instantly, and Betty came running to his side, but it would be too late for Peter. So detectives were baffled. They could not understand why a person would dress up in a Halloween costume only to come and kill Peter nearly close to midnight. At first, there was no leads, but as the investigation would go on, they would learn more about betrayal, a tang of lies, jealousy, and unfortunately, what came to the murder of Peter Fabiano. So it turned out there actually was a love triangle going on here. You see, Peter's wife, Betty Fabiano, was actually getting very close to a woman by the name of Joan Ravel, who was a writer and photographer. The relationship had become intimate, and Betty decided that that's not what she wanted, so she rekindled with her husband, Peter. But I guess Joan wasn't ready to let her go, because Joan was very bitter and jealous. And like I said, she could not let it go. She could not understand why Betty did not love her, and why did Betty not choose her. So Joan would confide in a friend named Golden Pizer, where she tells her that Peter is abusive and angry, basically trying to convince Golden to handle this plot of her revenge. And unbeknownst to Golden, she was impressed by what Joan was saying. So she actually agreed to the murder for hire of killing Peter Fabiano. She tells law enforcement that she dresses up, she has the paper brown bag, and then she shoots Peter when he opens the door. It didn't take police long to connect the dots around everything. And so both Joan and Golden were arrested. Golden tells law enforcement that she was manipulated into killing Peter. So Golden Pizer pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison. And Joan Ravel was also convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Neither women had any remorse about the actions and what they did of killing Peter Fabiano. So the murder of Peter Fabiano was known as the trick-or-treat murder, a crime of passion that was disguised by the perfect cover-up, Halloween night. And I think for many, it was more so like, wasn't a thing of like, oh, this person was, poisoned. It was around jealousy and betrayal, and how one person could not live without another person. So they had to take away someone in order to fix the equation. But I don't know why they would think that. And as I began to learn more about the case, I learned that Golden was also a divorced woman. So it's kind of like, dang, Joan took advantage of her situation, not saying that she was right, but took advantage of her situation of being a newly divorcee, and how she would have anger against men because you lied and said that this person was a vile human being, they were abusive, and then you come up with this plan. Mind you, they came up with this plan for 3 whole months, y'all. So it could have been avoided. She could have spoken up and told someone that, hey, your lover is trying to, ex-lover is trying to murder your husband. Like, So many things that she could have done, even if she felt like she was talked to into doing the crime. She had many chances to speak up and tell someone about what Joan was actually planning. Because in September, before the murder occurred, that is when the gun was purchased. You had time. So why not speak up and say, this woman is trying to kill your husband, girl? Bowden did pass away on February 11th, 1998, and there hasn't been much reporting about Joan. I'm just going to assume she's also deceased because time. So I just wanted to reiterate. So both women were convicted. They did get life terms, but they did not spend the rest of their lives in prison, and they were actually freed. There's not much information about what Joan had did with her life. Like I said, Golden actually passed away. And that's really the case, y'all. I mean, you have to think about it. It's back in the day, 1957, very different times as far as crime, you know, and being as though they didn't want the death penalty and they did plead guilty. I think that was kind of their way out of being in jail for eternity. And if you're wondering, Betty was not involved in the murder plot at all. This had everything to do with Joan. And so, because I know someone might be wondering, well, did Betty have anything to do with it? She did not, from what I've researched. She also had cooperated with the police and the investigation when everything happened. She even testified about her relationship with Joan. So basically, she cooperated through it all. I think that Joan was extremely jealous that Betty cut it off, and Betty was just willing to work it out with her husband, and she did not like that. So she decided, you know what? I'm going to set up this revenge plot to take away the one person that she loves. And that's exactly what happened. But like I said, Peter had his whole life ahead of him. 35 is young, and he was taken out of this world by a jealous, evil person on Halloween night, 1957. That's today's story, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Bye, guys.